How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy King Cap, and we're here with another review. As promised in the last video, if you didn't watch it, it'll be in the description below. We're going to be reviewing Black Myth Wukong. Probably, I'd say, the biggest game of the year as of the recording of this video. I mean, this game definitely blew up the internet, blew up Steam, and has become pretty much a lot of people's game of the year. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into the review. But as per usual, consider hitting that like button. Maybe subscribe if you like what you're seeing. More reviews will be coming out. Share the video, all that jazz. And let's get into the review of Black Myth Wukong. So I remember when this game was first announced, we did get this little trailer, and it was one of those games that really did seem too good to be true. And what I mean by that is we get so many trailers of games that just look absolutely amazing. The graphics are cool, the setting, all of that jazz, and the game never releases, or if it does release, it looks completely different than when it did. But Black Myth Wukong, when we got that reveal trailer, I mean, the game looked amazing. It looked like a Souls-like game, and I mean, that did carry on all the way till its release, that people did compare it to a Souls-like. But you know, the transformations of turning into different creatures and the combat and the fact that you were playing as Wukong, because a lot of people do know the story of Journey to the West. You know, characters like Goku, there's a bunch of Gokus behind me, are inspired by Sun Wukong, and you know, it was really cool to have a game that's going to be set in that actual world of Journey to the West. So I was excited. You know, I thought that this game looked really good. It looked really promising, and it went dark for a while. I remember not hearing about anything of this game for a couple of years, and then finally they started really pushing the game out and really advertising it. And yo, I just gotta say that this is easily one of the best games of 2024, one of the best Souls-like. I mean, I don't even want to consider it as a Souls-like, but if you were to put it in that category, definitely a top-tier game. The world building, everything about this game is top-notch, and there's a reason why it is now the second most played game ever in Steam history. I think it's just under PUBG, which is absolutely insane for a single-player game. And we know the controversy. We'll definitely get into the controversy later on in the review, but this game is just something that shows, you know, these AAA developers in the West that, hey, games just need to be fun. They need to have cool worlds. They have to have good polish and, you know, good combat, and people will play your game. We don't have to go and, you know, try to appease all of these groups of people. No, no, no. That's going to ruin your game. And, you know, we will get more into it later, but I mean, this just goes to show that single player games are not dead. They're bigger than ever, and I think Black Myth Wukong is just an incredible, incredible journey. So, the game is Black Myth Wukong. I don't want to get too into spoilers, but you do play kinda as Wukong. I mean, let's just start. When you play as actual Sun Wukong in the beginning, that is one of the sickest intros, I think, to any game. It really sets the mood of what this game is going to be like. You know, even though if you are unfamiliar with the source material, it can be a little confusing. I definitely was confused by the story a lot of times and had to do my own research. But if you do know the story of Journey to the West, you're going to have a lot easier time. You're definitely going to know the callbacks and the characters that are being portrayed, and you're definitely going to have a lot easier time to be able to follow the story, because the story does seem pretty cohesive. It's just that if you don't know the source material, you're going to be confused, and that's with anything, right? So, but the intro was just fire. I mean, the settings, the music, the atmosphere. You're fighting on a freaking cloud, and you're fighting the celestial court, and there's a bunch of like these giant gods around you. I mean, it's literally a Dragon Ball fight, going through mountains and like shit breaking. It literally looks like a Dragon Ball fight, which is ironic because Son Goku was inspired by Sun Wukong. So it's a really, really cool intro, and I really do think that if you're not sure if you're going to like this game, just check out the beginning. Play the beginning, you know, it really will get you hooked for the rest of the game. So, like I said, you're not playing as Wukong, you're playing as like a reincarnation named the Destined One. Unfortunately, he doesn't talk. I do kind of wish he did talk, just like how Wukong does when you play as him in the beginning, I definitely do like having a voice actor because it's not like an RPG where you create your own character and you don't need to have a voice. You are playing as an actual character that's not created by you, right? So I definitely do wish he did have a voice, but it doesn't matter. It's not a deal breaker. But you play as the Destined One. You're trying to recover all 6 of Wukong's relics, and bring him back to life. It seems, and it's just about the adventure of you going through all of these worlds and trying to get the relics and defeat the Celestial Court and bring back Wukong. And it's a really good setup. I think the environments that that the journey takes you through are great. The cutscenes are well directed. The English dub is actually really good. I usually do not like to play English dub. I usually like to play the native language of what this is supposed to be. So in this case, it's a Chinese-made game. It's supposed to be in Mandarin. I did play in English, and even though the mouths and the voice don't match, it's not too jarring. They do a pretty good job of syncing the dub, but the voice acting is surprisingly really good. I was very surprised because, when you look at your Japanese dub games, sometimes the English dub is kind of trash. It's kind of try hard. It's too like anime-esque, and there are great English dubs of Japanese made games like the Final Fantasy games, 7 Rebirth, 16, all of those, great voice acting. But, for a brand new studio that just made their first AAA game, the voice acting in this game is pretty phenomenal. I definitely had no issues with the acting. I think the only thing that sometimes happened was during combat scenes, the voice equalizing was a little too low and the music was going over it. But minor things like that, you can definitely play around your settings or your TV or whatever to fix that. But that was the only issue I had. The actual dub itself was well done, but the presentation of this game is phenomenal. I mean, this is definitely a AAA game. You can feel the production behind the game, and there's a reason why they went dark for a while. I think that they weren't ready to show any more of the game until it was ready, and I'm glad that they did because I think this game blew a lot of people's expectations out of the water. And it's always good to be pleasantly surprised rather than to be disappointed, and I think this game just nailed that dilemma there. So I wouldn't want to say this is a Souls-like. It has some elements, but it's also closer to like a Devil May Cry or like a Stellar Blade. Like the combat is very one-on-one-esque like your Souls games, but there obviously are group fights. You're dodging, you're not parrying, you're only dodging in this game, but you're trying to break people's stances. So it has some Sekiro elements in it as well. You're using magic as well, and you have a stamina bar. And when you get to shrines in this game, they're essence shrines instead of bonfires. When you get to them and you rest, all the enemies will populate just like your Souls game. So there are definitely elements taken from a bunch of different games. There's some RPG elements as well. So like you're finding equips and you're finding different like armor sets. So you can even say it has some Neo inspiration in it as well. And I think that they were just able to mold all of these different concepts of all these different great games very well, while also giving us a great story, giving us a great world building, great combat. And I'm genuinely very impressed with how everything came together with this game. Like I said, there's a reason why this is a lot of people's game of the year, and the production quality is just amazing. And just like how I said in my Astrobot review, this is a video game, and sometimes all you need is a game to be fun for it to be successful. And again, this is just relaying that message across all of these other Western developers. So I want to get to the world building. How this game works is you're pretty much in 6 different chapters. Each chapter you're in a specific map. You can fast travel between different shrines in all the maps. So just because you beat one chapter doesn't mean you can't go back, which is key because what I'm going to get to soon. But the game is pretty linear, but there are a lot of beaten paths that you can take that lead to different bosses and different areas and whole secret maps. And I think this game is really cool how it hides a lot of the things. This game definitely, I think, needs to be played with a guide, because there's a certain part in the game when you get to a certain boss in chapter 4 where if you don't know where to go to get a specific item, you are going to have a hell of a time with this boss. I mean, it's borderline impossible. I almost was able to beat it before I got this item, but once I got this item, this the second phase that this boss uses is pretty much completely nullified, and you can now continue fighting the boss, because without it, your stamina is cut in half, you can't dodge, and your health is cut in half. So it's borderline impossible to beat him because he's like two-shotting you at that point, or one-shotting you sometimes. So this game definitely does need a guide. There's standard secrets like certain items and weapons. You can definitely find those on your own, but I think the secret boss, which leads to the secret ending and is also the best boss in the game by far, even though it's kind of pissed me off a lot of times, is stuck behind being able to know where to go. And I definitely think that without a guide, you are going to have a difficult time, not only progressing through some of the game, but getting the true ending in the best equips, because some of these things I didn't know were even available until I was at the last chapter of the game, in which I went back afterwards and found all these items and found all these weapons, and it definitely did help the final chapter and the rest of the game. And it's great items to bring into the new game plus as well. So definitely take that with a grain of salt. I mean, I personally think that you need a guide. Maybe I'm just an idiot. If you don't think so, definitely leave a comment below. But I definitely think that this game, they do need to tell you a little bit more. I'm not asking to have my hand held, but I definitely think there are some messages that need to be relayed to the player a little more clear than what we got. But that being said, I mean, the maps are good. Like, there's very, very diverse levels. You got your forest level, you got your snow level, you got your fire, like, volcano level, you got bigger forest level, which was really cool when you get the frickin' Nimbus. I think it's called the somersault cloud or something along that line, but you get to literally ride a Nimbus around this entire map. I wish you got that in other maps of the game, just because when you're backtracking, it definitely would help let you travel through the map, but I can see why not, because the last map is the biggest map, even though it is kind of empty, but you do get to ride the Nimbus, which I thought was unreal when I first got to do that. But the maps were good, and there's a lot of secrets, there's a lot of bosses, there's great characters, there's side quests, there's all these things. So I think the actual progression of this game was really well done. And I think that there's a lot of content here for, if you miss things in your first playthrough. New Game Plus is great in this game. There's a lot of new things to unlock that are only available in New Game Plus. I think there's also a secret ending where you have to beat the game 3 times, and you have to beat the hardest boss 3 times, which is the secret boss. I haven't done that yet, but yeah, I think this game is a winner in my opinion, for the world building and the levels. And even though it's a linear game, there's so many different paths that there are to take, where it almost feels, I don't want to say semi-open world, but I don't feel cramped. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I'm just going from point A to point B. I feel like there's an A, B, C, D, E, F, G paths to go. And then when you're ready for the actual main story, you go from A to B. So it's all about how you interpret it. If you like to explore in maps, you have that option. But if you just want to get to the next boss and get to the next chapter and speed through it, that's available as well. So the combat is really, really cool. I think that the combat is very different, but also very, very well done. I was playing on PlayStation. Press your square for your light attacks. Triangle will be your heavy attacks. Now, to do your heavy attacks, you want to build up your focus meter, which is at the bottom right of the screen. You can hold, at the beginning of the game, you can only hold 1 focus, but as you level up with the skill tree, which there is a very in-depth skill tree in my opinion, there's a lot of things that you can unlock, you can get up to 3, and then you can hold 3, and then you can get a 4th one that will degrade over time if you don't use it. And the cool thing is that as high as your focus is, your attack will change. So when you're doing your smash stance, because there are 3 stances in this game, there's thrust, smash, and pillar. Pillar is definitely one of the coolest things ever. You get to stand on your little staff and balance on it, and you're immune to ground attacks. Really, really cool. And then you just smash down and just smack the enemy in the head. Love that stance. Thrust is definitely better if you want to be more defensive. And then your overall, when you're just killing small enemies, smash is really good for it. But you can use any stance throughout the game anytime. So it's all up to you. But that's just how I kind of differentiated using the stances. But when you do the smash stance, if you do it from one focus, he'll just do a simple smash. Second, he'll do a bigger smash. Third, he'll do like 3 flips and then the last smash. And then the fourth one, he like swings your staff around and then slams it really hard, and your damage increases as well. Really, really cool how they kind of convey that the more focus you are holding, the more your attacks will do more damage. And it's not just, the number goes up. It's like, no, your character, the destined one, is actually focusing and using cooler moves to get the enemy to be damaged more. So really like how they did that. And speaking of New Game Plus, there's a fourth stance you can get once you get one of the weapons at the end of the game. You can use it in New Game Plus, or you can use it before the final boss. So there's a lot of customization. The next thing is also there's magic. So you can hold R trigger and put 4 different magic things in different slots. You can do things such as the Shadow Jitsu, Shadow Clones if you watch Naruto, but it's called Pluck a Mini, where he takes a hair and he just like clones himself and they all start attacking. Really, really sick power, and you can level it up as well. Then you can freeze people. You can put a ring of fire around you and heal. You can turn to a rock. So because this game isn't parry based, it's all dodging. But there is a parry magic move that you can use, and if you time it well, it'll completely, disbalance the enemy, and then you can just start smacking them and punishing them. And then you have your transformations. Now, there's certain bosses that you can defeat in this game and get their transformation. And what that means is you press R trigger, you press circle, and you can turn into different, beasts. And you get a new health bar, and they have their own abilities, and they have their own heavy attacks and their own meters that you want to manage. And it's really, really cool to be in a boss fight and pull out these transformations at a very dire part, because that's really what can give you the upper hand in a lot of these bosses. And I don't want to say that this game is hard per se, but there's some challenging fights in this game that are going to test you, and just having that ability to transform into different things not only keeps the combat fresh because you have all of these creatures that you can transform into, but it also gives you a strategic approach of, when am I going to use this? When do I need to save my healing, and so then I can then transform and get another bar and not have to use my healing for a minute. Very, very cool that they have that approachability to this game. And I just overall think that how the dodging works and how buttery smooth the combat is, and the strategic approaches that you can take, and the flexibility of Wukong himself just really gives this combat a very fresh feeling. And when you look at the outside, it doesn't look like anything new, but once you actually play it, there's so many options in this game that keep the combat actually fresh. So Game Science, I kudos to you for making something that's becoming a stale genre into something fresh. So kudos to you guys. So the bosses in this game are, I think, the most important part of it. This game is very, very boss dependent. And what I mean by that is that there's so many bosses. I'm talking about, almost 100 or something bosses. And you'll go through levels and fight 7 or 8 mini bosses. And then that doesn't include 2 to 5 optional bosses that you can get to, and then the main boss afterwards. This game is very boss heavy, and it's really, really cool how they do their bosses. You have your simple one-on-one fights, you have 2v1 fights, which I do feel Game Science actually does the 2v1 fights better than From Software. The Godskin duos and how they differentiate when the bosses attack you. It just seems a little unfair, but I feel that Black Myth definitely balanced the 2v1 combat way better, in my opinion. You have these crazy set piece bosses that there's a lot of shit going on, you change maps, there's dialogue, sometimes you'll get a helper, your little pig buddy will come help you in some bosses. I think the bosses in this game are absolutely phenomenal. Now, that being said, there are some bosses that are a little bullshit, like the boss in Chapter 4, where if you don't have this one item, you will most likely not be able to beat this boss. Erlang, the secret boss, spoiler alert, he is a great boss, but I definitely think there's some bullshit in his design. The boss does kind of lead to one of the most metal shit ever in the game, though. But there are some bosses that could definitely have been polished a lot more. But overall, I think the bosses in this game were absolutely phenomenal. The secret bosses are really cool too, and I like how you have to sometimes go to secret areas that you have no idea where you're going, and you'll fight these crazy set piece bosses. And sometimes the best bosses are completely missable, which I think is a lot of respect, and they really want the gamer to explore this game to find some of their best work. And yeah, I think this is definitely one of the top competitors of like games with best bosses. It's something that where when they if they make a sequel, when they make a sequel, I mean the success for this game, why wouldn't you make one or a DLC? Uh, I'm excited to see the refinement of their bosses and how they're going to better design some of these. And this is their first game, and the bosses are this good. I mean, I can't praise them higher enough than that because as much as we like the Souls game, some of those bosses were absolute shit in the first game. So the fact that they have this many good bosses right from the start, that's an amazing start, Game Science, and I cannot wait to see what other bosses you guys have. So you can tell that they put a lot of design in their bosses. I definitely think a room for improvement is the enemy design. You do get some cool enemy designs, but every chapter you're kind of fighting the same enemy throughout the chapter. So, adding a couple more per map would have definitely helped keep combat fresh when you're going through the levels. I do also feel that a lot of the enemies are kind of fodder. They're not very difficult. It's not like your Souls games or your DMC where it's possible to get killed by a regular enemy. I rarely ever got killed by a regular enemy. I think the only time I did is when I fought a boss and I didn't heal up before or after I left, and I didn't have any gourds left. And gourds is like your flasks in this game. But I definitely do think that they could definitely make some of the enemies harder, especially in New Game Plus, because man, like I'm playing New Game Plus right now and I'm just melting things. So yeah, I think that's one thing that they can improve. Maybe add a couple more designs and just make them a little bit harder. I'm not asking for it to be like I have to worry about dying from one checkpoint to the other, but I definitely do want a challenge before I get to the boss. So hopefully in the next game or in any future DLCs, they do make the enemies a little bit tougher, but they're entertaining to fight, which is it's not going to be a detriment to the actual game's enjoyability, in my opinion. So I want to talk about the controversy. We know what happened. IGN falsely translated something that the creator said and said that they were misogynistic and sexist, and it was just ridiculous. He pretty much didn't actually say that. Then they were saying that there's no women in the game, and then when you get to chapter 4, it's literally all about women, and there's even characters in chapter 5 as well that are women, making me think that these journalists who like reviewed the game didn't even fucking play the game. Like if you got past chapter 3, you would have saw a lot of women in the game, but they didn't. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. Um, I don't know when these journalists are going to realize that if you put a game down, especially a game that's actually good, if you say all the shit and you try to ruin it before it comes out, like what they did with Hogwarts, I guarantee you are only helping the game sell more because people are sick and tired of your opinion because you guys have lost all your credibility. So, journalists, why don't y'all just shut the fuck up and just let people enjoy their games? Okay? Like that's all we're asking. Like we don't care. Like you're helping these developers out. So if you really don't like them and you don't want them to succeed, I'm not saying this game wouldn't have succeeded without it, but I think that the controversy of this game came, especially because it was so unwarranted, definitely helped push sales because people are sick of you. So I think y'all just should just touch some grass and shut up, and next time play the game fully. Because if you're going to make articles about how there's no women representation in the game and not get to chapter 4 where it's literally all about women, you're gonna look like an idiot. And we already all knew that journalists in gaming are idiots. They're wannabe journalists. But if you're gonna be a wannabe journalist, at least try to do your job freaking good and at least look like you're trying rather than, just looking like an asshole. So that's my take on this whole controversy. It's very, very stupid. People should be able to like what they want. It's a free country here. I'm from Canada, free country. US, free country. If people want to play these freaking games, let them. Just like how you like to watch stupid shows like Euphoria. Let people enjoy what they want. I think Euphoria is fucking stupid. You don't see me complaining about it. Just my take on it, guys. So overall, I think Black Myth Wukong is definitely a Game of the Year contender. Again, it was 2024. I thought it was going to be a pretty quiet year, but we've had some great bangers this year. And Black Myth Wukong not only surprised a lot of people, but it blew people's expectations out of the water. And I know that Game Science said they're working on a large DLC. I think I read that they want to make something like a Shadow of the Erdtree kind of style DLC. So they want to make a massive DLC that's like the size of a game. Please do that because I want more content in this game. I don't want to have to wait another 5-6 years for a sequel. I want more now. I'm hungry for more. And if somebody beats your game, they spend 30-40 hours in your game and they beat it and all they want is more, you got a great product on your hand. And I definitely can see come, Game of the Year, Player's Choice Award, I could definitely see this being a winner. I think that this will most likely actually win that award. I can't really think of another game that might actually take that title, but I know for a fact that the award shows are not going to give this game Game of the Year just because, the game's not woke, but I can definitely see it being a gamers editor choice whatever award. So yeah, great game. Definitely one of my top 10 games of the year. And when I make my list this year, I definitely will be adding this to it. I can't see any game. I can't see like 9 other games coming out to push this completely out of the list. So Game Science, I mean, this is your first AAA game, and you guys nailed it. I mean, nobody can take that away from you. Fuck the controversy. Who cares about what anyone says? You guys made a banger of a game. People love it, and you're now the second most played game on Steam ever. You beat games like Elden Ring and Cyberpunk and all of this. Like, that's crazy. Like, nobody can take that away from you. So congratulations. Keep throwing out that content. Chinese developers are here to play, guys. We had a great Korean game. We had actually 2. We had Liza P. We had Stellar Blade. Now the Chinese are giving us games like Black Myth. Like, yo, the West needs to step up. Japanese games, they're still good, but I think that they need to step up a bit too. They're getting a little too comfortable because other regions are coming to play. And this is the kind of stuff I like because when companies come to play, other companies are forced to give it their best. So I look forward to seeing what comes next from the studio. And yeah, I think that if you have a PC or a PlayStation, 100% recommend Black Myth Wukong. Amazing, triumphant game. And I think it's one of those games that succeeded against all odds. And it was an underdog game, and look what happened. So congratulations, Game Science. But that's gonna do it here, guys. Definitely rambled on a little bit too much in this review, but I had a lot to say. I really enjoyed this game. I had to talk about the controversy just because it just seems like people can't like shit anymore, but this game definitely just shoved the journalist's own message down their throat, and look what happened. So definitely recommend this game. Amazing game, and that's gonna do it here, guys. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, consider liking the video, leaving a comment, all that jazz. Let me know if you played Black Myth. Is it one of your top games this year? Is it one of your top games of all time? Did you hate it? Do you feel that there wasn't any women representation? Let's chat in the comments. Definitely would love to hear what you guys think. And until next time, Sparking Zero is going to be dropping fairly soon. Cannot wait for that game, and you can definitely bet your ass. I mean, look at the Dragon Ball stuff behind me. There will be a review for that game, and I might have gotten the collector's edition. Maybe we'll do an unboxing. We'll see. If you want to see it, definitely subscribe. And until then, King Kappa signing out. Peace out, and have y'all a great day. See you later.